Roman Reigns reacts to Goldberg's surprise return to WWE and challenge Gunther on Saturday night's main event. Goldberg surprises the WWE Universe and the new World Heavyweight Champion Gunther to inform the ring general that they have a title match July 12 on Saturday night's main event. The lights went out. A pulse of electricity snapped through the air. Then, without warning, his music hit. For 5 full seconds, the WWE Universe sat in stunned silence. Then, the arena erupted. No countdown. No teaser. No advance rumor. Just a thunderous explosion of nostalgia and intimidation all at once. Goldberg was back. Not on a documentary. Not in a Hall of Fame package. Not in a quiet backstage cameo. No. He was back in the ring, live, on Saturday night's main event, marching down that ramp with purpose in his stride and destruction in his eyes. And he wasn't here to relive glory days. He was here with one name on his mind, Gunther. The ring general. The man who had dethroned an empire and now stood as the newly crowned World Heavyweight Champion. And behind the scenes? One man, one alpha, was watching it all unfold, Roman Reigns. The question isn't why Goldberg is back. It's why now, and what his return means in a WWE currently defined by dominance, legacy, and brutal title politics. And when Roman Reigns saw that moment play out, insiders say he didn't just react. He exploded. This isn't just another Legends Return storyline. This isn't a cameo. And this sure as hell isn't about ratings. This is a seismic event that instantly split the WWE landscape in 3 directions. Gunther, the new king of the heavyweight mountain, unbeaten, untested at this level, and now challenged by a legend. Goldberg, the predator who always comes back when the top spot smells like blood. Roman Reigns, the long-reigning tribal chief, suddenly watching someone else draw the attention of the WWE Universe. There are moments in wrestling history that are just showbiz. But then there are moments, rare, unmistakable, when reality cracks through the script. Goldberg's return was one of those. Because no one in the building expected him. And that includes the locker room. Especially Roman. This isn't just a surprise return. This is the shot that starts a war. A war for legacy. For dominance. For the future of the WWE title scene. So what does Goldberg want? Is this his last shot? A personal vendetta? Or something more strategic? Why Gunther? Why not Roman, Cody, or Seth? And more importantly, what the hell is Roman Reigns going to do about it? Because for nearly 1,200 days, Roman Reigns has commanded the center of every major WWE headline. But now, for the first time since he took up the mantle of the tribal chief, he's being overshadowed. And Roman doesn't get overshadowed. Not without retaliation. If you stick with this story until the end, you'll understand every layer of what's really happening, why Goldberg's surprise wasn't random, but a calculated return rooted in unfinished business. Why Gunther might be the most important champion WWE has had in the past decade, and how this match could make or break him. Why Roman Reigns is furious, and what sources say is happening behind the scenes that may shape the future of WWE's top titles. This isn't just about a match being made for July 12. It's about power shifting. Legacies clashing. And something bigger brewing on the horizon, a confrontation between alpha males, each hungry for control of WWE's golden narrative. You're about to get every detail. Every quote. Every unseen angle. But before we go forward, we have to go back, to understand where Goldberg has been, how Gunther rose, and why Roman's throne is now under threat. So buckle up. This isn't a recap. This is the start of a storm. For weeks, WWE had settled into a rhythm. The kind of rhythm that feels deceptively calm, right before something blows the roof off. Gunther had just ascended to the top of the food chain. After a record-breaking Intercontinental Championship reign that spanned over 600 days, he'd now stepped into the role of World Heavyweight Champion. His technical brutality, ring psychology, and calm, authoritative demeanor had won over fans and analysts alike. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't loud. He didn't need to be. He was efficient, ruthless, and exacting. Gunther represented something new. Not a product of entertainment but of excellence. He wasn't built like the typical WWE megastar, but his presence filled every arena. His reign was expected to begin with a long, dominant run, perhaps mirroring what Roman Reigns had accomplished with the Universal Championship. Analysts were already speculating how Gunther might redefine what it means to be champion in a post-bloodline era. In contrast, Roman Reigns had been selectively present. His dominance was still intact, but the frequency of his appearances had decreased. He wasn't defending the title every month. He didn't need to. He had Paul Heyman to do the talking, Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso to do the dirty work, and a legacy thick enough to silence critics. But that growing silence was beginning to draw attention. Then there was the rest of WWE. Cody Rhodes was still trying to finish his story. Seth Rollins was rehabilitating both body and brand. LA Knight's momentum was undeniable, but WWE seemed reluctant to pull the trigger. Damian Priest was looming with a money-in-the-bank briefcase. And behind it all, Triple H was building a product based on harder-hitting matches, long-term storytelling, and occasional blasts of surprise nostalgia. But no one saw this one coming. Not like this. Goldberg had been absent since his last match against Roman Reigns in 2022. A match he lost clean. There were whispers of retirement. A rumored farewell tour that never materialized. WWE's creative direction had shifted away from part-time legends and leaned into developing new stars with long-term appeal. So when Saturday night's main event was announced for July 12, nobody had Goldberg's name anywhere near the conversation. Not among fans. Not among insiders. Not even in speculative fantasy bookings. The build-up to the event had been focused on solidifying Gunther's title defenses and testing how the new champion would perform under spotlight pressure. Would WWE let him squash his first challenger to send a message? Would they put him in a 30-minute clinic against someone like Chad Gable or Drew McIntyre to show the world his versatility? Was this the start of the Gunther era? What nobody was talking about was legacy warfare. Not yet. Roman Reigns had made sure of that. As far as the WWE Universe was concerned, he was still the sun around which everything orbited. He had dictated storylines, divided locker rooms, and defined WrestleMania after WrestleMania. Even in his absence, he cast a long shadow. But the air was beginning to shift. There were signs, if you looked closely. WWE social media had begun to run more clips of historical championship rivalries. Goldberg was subtly name-dropped in backstage interviews, always with the implication that he was part of the past, not the present. WWE documentary crews were spotted filming in Atlanta, Goldberg's hometown, supposedly for a Legends Never Die miniseries. Still, nothing overt. No leaks. No backstage photo slips. No internet breadcrumbs that usually precede big returns. It was calm. Too calm. Saturday night's main event opened like any other high-stakes WWE show. The stage was lit, commentary teams hyped the night ahead, and the crowd was alive. But no one in that arena, no one watching at home, could have imagined what was coming. Because this wasn't just a comeback. This was a collision course. Goldberg wasn't returning for nostalgia. He was returning for vengeance. For legacy. For gold. And it was about to disrupt everything WWE had been building quietly over the last year. Gunther's reign was meant to stabilize the future. But Goldberg doesn't care about the future. He only cares about dominance. And Roman Reigns? He wasn't even booked for the show. But sources confirmed he was watching. From his private suite. With Heyman at his side. Arms folded. Jaw tight. Because he knows what's coming too. When Goldberg shows up, it's never just about one man. It's about shifting power. Declaring war. And somewhere in that calm, the seeds of chaos had already been planted. Saturday night's main event wasn't meant to be historic. It was designed to be solid, maybe even exciting, but not game-changing. A summer showcase to keep momentum rolling between premium live events. The kind of event where new contenders are tested, storylines are nudged forward, and champions get some spotlight without too much risk. That's what made it the perfect cover. The show kicked off with energy. The crowd, packed into the sold-out Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles, was lively but not frantic. Chants for LA Knight filled the air as fans waved signs and held their phones high for Instagram stories. There was no sense of dread. No sense that something unexpected was going to shatter the flow. The audience was excited but relaxed. The opening match was a banger. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn took on DIY in a tag match that stole early attention. It was hard-hitting, emotional, and built to remind fans that technical wrestling and storytelling could still live side by side. The commentary team, Michael Cole, Wade Barrett, and Corey Graves, was in perfect sync, teasing long-term angles while calling the action like it mattered. Segment after segment rolled out with clinical precision. Raquel Rodriguez returned from injury. Austin Theory picked up a cheap win over Ricochet. The Judgment Day had a backstage promo that hinted at more internal tension. Seth Rollins made a surprise appearance to cut a passionate promo on reclaiming his spot at the top, teasing the audience with a possible confrontation against whoever walked out of July 12th as champion. But still, no buzz. No mystery. No surprise. Until the end of the second hour. Gunther's match wasn't meant to close the show. That alone should have tipped people off. Instead, it was placed just after the women's title defense, almost as if WWE was clearing space. Clearing the decks. Making room. Gunther was set to defend his World Heavyweight Championship against Sheamus, a rematch months in the making. A guaranteed slugfest between two men who didn't know how to hold back. The match had been hyped across social media as a classic in the making. And for the first 10 minutes, that's exactly what it was. Gunther dominated early, using his surgical strikes and ring control to frustrate Sheamus. But the Celtic Warrior fought back with stiff clotheslines, power slams, and raw grit. The crowd rose to its feet with every near fall. The kind of match that reminds fans what pro wrestling can be when done at its peak. But then it happened. The moment Sheamus went for the brogue kick, the lights dimmed. Not completely. Just enough to throw timing off. Enough to distract. Sheamus missed. Gunther capitalized. Chop. Powerbomb. 1, 2, 3. Gunther retained. The crowd popped. Not huge, but respectable. A match well wrestled. A champion still intact. Then the lights cut out completely. At first, people thought it was a technical glitch. The commentary table went quiet. The screen flickered. Fans lit up their phones, confused but buzzing. And then it came. That deep, metallic snarl of an opening note. The video screen came alive. Flashes of fire. Old clips of domination. Jackhammers. Spears. Blood. Pyro carnage. Then the words, in blood-red font, "Who's next?" The crowd lost it. They screamed before the name even appeared. But when the flames erupted and the camera turned toward the entrance ramp, there was no need to guess. Goldberg had arrived. He didn't wait for commentary to recover. He didn't pose or flex. He stormed down the ramp like he hadn't missed a day. Shoulders hunched forward. Fists clenched. A human wrecking ball headed straight for the man still holding the World Heavyweight title. Gunther stood in the ring, belt in one hand, eyes locked forward, unmoving. No fear. Just focus. It was the first real moment Gunther looked like something more than a dominant wrestler. He looked like a champion being hunted. Goldberg slid into the ring without missing a step. He didn't ask for a mic. One was tossed to him anyway. He caught it mid-air, raised it slowly to his mouth, and uttered the line that would shake the WWE Universe to its core. "I'm not here for respect. I'm not here for memories. I'm here for your title." The crowd roared. He didn't blink. "You call yourself the ring general. I've run through rings, generals, and champions. You're next." He dropped the mic. Gunther didn't move. He raised the belt slowly, stared Goldberg dead in the eye, and nodded once. The screen faded to black. A new war had just begun. When Goldberg's music hit, the building didn't just hear it, they felt it. That signature entrance theme, with its churning bass and hammering snare, didn't need pyro or an announcer's voice to trigger chaos. It had been seared into the DNA of wrestling fans for more than 2 decades. Like a reflex. Like a war siren. Everyone knew what it meant, and nobody was prepared. Not the fans. Not the commentators. Not the champion in the ring. Seconds before the sound hit, the camera had been trained on Gunther, holding his title with the calm intensity of a man who had just dismantled Sheamus. There was no warning, no flicker in the Titantron, no dimming of lights. The match had concluded, and the crowd was starting to applaud when the opening scream of Goldberg's entrance erupted. The shot cut wide. For the briefest moment, there was confusion, then pure, unfiltered hysteria. People jumped to their feet. Phones whipped into the air. Chants rang out like thunder, some shocked, some ecstatic, some doubtful. "No way," someone near ringside yelled, their face a mix of disbelief and nostalgia. "This can't be real." It was. The backstage hallway camera angle popped on the arena screen, another trademark of Goldberg's entrances. He stood in gorilla position, chest heaving, steam pouring from his nose like a bull ready to charge. Flanked by security on each side, he nodded once. The guards moved. The door opened. The monster was loose. The walk down that hallway wasn't fast. It never was. Goldberg doesn't sprint. He stalks. He arrives like a storm front, slow, inevitable, and terrifying in its momentum. Commentators scrambled to respond. Corey Graves was the first to speak. "What the hell is happening? That's Goldberg? That's Goldberg. No one saw this coming." Michael Cole was nearly shouting, "Goldberg hasn't been in a WWE ring in over a year. He had no booking, no contract, no promo package. This is unbelievable." Gunther didn't move. He didn't leave the ring. He stood in the middle of it, eyes narrowed, title draped over his shoulder, not blinking once. That wasn't a mistake. He knew exactly what message he was sending. If Goldberg wanted a war, he'd find no retreat here. The camera cut back to the ramp. Goldberg emerged into the arena as a wall of pyro shot upward on each side. The noise was deafening. There were kids in the front row watching their dads freak out. People clutching replica titles, screaming, pointing, half cheering, half terrified. This wasn't a feel-good pop. It wasn't the legend returns for a nostalgia boost. This felt like something else. Goldberg wasn't smiling. He wasn't high-fiving fans. He walked with rage in every step, his shoulders hunched, his fists clenched, veins pulsing in his neck. He looked more like the Goldberg from WCW 1998 than the one who had wrestled Roman Reigns at Elimination Chamber. No ring rust. No showboating. Just focus. Controlled violence. And a target locked directly ahead. Gunther. The announcers tried to re-establish order. Wade Barrett asked the question the whole internet was already typing, "Why now?" Goldberg hit the ring, and for the first time since the end of his Universal title run, he stood across from a reigning World Heavyweight Champion. But this was different. Because this wasn't a returning hero seeking redemption. This wasn't a farewell tour moment. This was a hunter staring down a new king. Gunther raised the belt, not arrogantly, but definitively. Goldberg took one step closer. The two men stood less than a foot apart. No words had been spoken yet. The crowd was at a fever pitch. There was no music. No commentary. Just noise. Raw, unfiltered electricity. Then Goldberg reached for a microphone. His voice was low. Controlled. But unmistakably venomous. "I know what everyone's thinking," he said. "Why am I here?" He didn't pause for an answer. "I'm here because this title you're holding, it doesn't belong to someone like you. Not yet. You're a technician. You're precise. You're impressive. But you're not feared. And in this business? Fear matters." He stared into Gunther's face without blinking. "I built this company on fear. On destruction. On dominance. You think you're a ring general? I destroyed armies." He pointed at the title. "I've been champion in this ring before. I bled in this ring. And I'm not done." Gunther's expression didn't change. He simply stepped forward and raised the belt higher. The message was clear: try me. Goldberg nodded. Slowly. Almost respectfully. Then his tone sharpened. Saturday night's main event. July 12th. You. Me. For the title. He dropped the mic. No response was needed. Gunther raised the championship again, this time over his head, the final punctuation mark of the moment. The show cut to black with the image of two titans, a generation apart, ready to clash. It wasn't about nostalgia. It wasn't about proving a point. It was about who was going to rule the present, and who was still dangerous enough to take it all back. The confrontation between Goldberg and Gunther wasn't drawn out. It wasn't packed with layers of monologue or dragged through commercial breaks. It didn't need to be. Because some messages don't require paragraphs. Some are delivered through posture. Silence. Presence. That's exactly what happened when the past walked straight into the present and didn't flinch. Goldberg had made his intentions clear: he wanted a title match. Not just any title. The World Heavyweight Championship. And not just any champion, he was targeting Gunther, the man hailed as the most methodical, dominant in-ring competitor in modern WWE history. But standing across from him, Goldberg didn't come off like an outsider or a relic. He looked like a threat. Not because of age or muscle or nostalgia. Because of the way Gunther looked back at him. With calculation. With respect, but not fear. There was no false bravado. No grandstanding. Gunther didn't snatch the mic to deliver a monologue. He didn't launch into insults or dismiss Goldberg's legacy. He simply stood there, solid, cold, rooted in place. The way a general faces down an unexpected war. After Goldberg issued the challenge and dropped the mic, Gunther didn't speak immediately. He turned his head slightly, looked down at the championship resting across his shoulder, and then slowly lifted it into the air. That subtle movement said more than any promo could. It was an acknowledgement. A message. You want this? Try and take it. But behind that cool exterior, something else was happening, something more important than just bravado or performance. For the first time since winning the World Heavyweight title, Gunther was being tested without throwing a single strike. Goldberg's presence alone was the test. And make no mistake, this was not scripted comfort. This wasn't safe rivalry. This was risk. Goldberg was walking into the modern era with the audacity to challenge its most technically complete wrestler, a man who had never been pinned in his WWE career. It was a moment of tectonic shift, and the fans felt it. The arena was unusually quiet in the seconds after the face-off ended. Not dead silence, just heavy. Intense. Fans weren't sure if a brawl was coming. Security had begun to move closer to ringside. Officials stood by the curtain backstage, just in case something went off script. Gunther never blinked. Goldberg didn't back away. They held the tension, both refusing to yield an inch. Not physically. Not psychologically. And then, as if on cue, Gunther stepped forward, not aggressively, but deliberately. He was inches from Goldberg now, still holding the belt. His eyes locked directly on Goldberg's, and for a single, taut second, time felt suspended. Then came the nod. A single, slow, downward tilt of the head from the champion. It wasn't submission. It wasn't agreement. It was acknowledgement. You've earned this. Now come and try. The moment was brief. But that nod was the turning point that lit the fuse. Because the second Gunther made that gesture, Goldberg leaned forward just slightly, and his lips moved, but there was no mic, no need to project. It was meant for Gunther only. You're in my world now. It was a callback. A cold echo of the same words Goldberg had once said to Brock Lesnar nearly a decade earlier. Except now, there was no smugness behind it. No catchphrase delivery. Just a warning. Gunther's lips didn't move. He didn't smirk. He didn't blink. He stared straight ahead as Goldberg finally stepped back, turned toward the ropes, and made his exit. No music played. No commentary filled the air. The silence returned, but this time it was loaded with momentum. Because what just happened was unprecedented. Goldberg had shown up, unannounced, and issued a direct, undisputed challenge to the reigning champion. And Gunther had accepted it, not in words, but in action. In presence. WWE didn't need to book the match. The match had already been made. The moment Goldberg exited the ring, social media detonated. The WWE Universe, caught somewhere between disbelief and adrenaline, swarmed every platform like wildfire. Goldberg trended within minutes. Fans scrambled to post replays, reaction videos, memes, and speculation. Some were stunned. Some were furious. Some were thrilled. All were talking. That's how you know something's bigger than a promo. It breaks containment. It spills into real life. Back in the arena, the camera zoomed in on Gunther. Still in the ring. Still holding the title. His face unreadable. He had not said a single word. But the challenge was set. By the time WWE's post-show stream went live, the rumors were already racing through the internet. WWE.com confirmed it within the hour. Gunther vs. Goldberg, World Heavyweight Championship, July 12, Saturday night's main event. No contract signing. No long-winded build-up. Just two names, one title, one date. The announcement sent shockwaves through the roster. Behind the scenes, the locker room wasn't thrilled. One unnamed veteran reportedly muttered, "So now a part-timer walks in and gets the main event again?" Another simply asked, "Why now? Why Gunther?" It wasn't just bitterness. It was confusion. Goldberg hadn't wrestled since 2022. He hadn't teased a return. There was no social media heat, no hint of a storyline being developed. He appeared from nowhere, and walked into a title shot against one of the most dominant champions WWE has seen in years. But fans who knew how Goldberg moves understood immediately, this was calculated. It always is. Goldberg doesn't need momentum to challenge. He creates momentum by challenging. And this time, he didn't target Roman. He didn't call out a past rival. He went straight for the future. Gunther is the kind of opponent Goldberg never had in his heyday. A technician. A strategist. A grinder. A monster with patience. A champion who doesn't get rattled. In many ways, Gunther is everything Goldberg wasn't. And everything Goldberg now needs to beat to rewrite the end of his story. Because make no mistake, this is Goldberg's final run. Whether he admits it or not, everyone watching knows. He's 57. His last few matches, while dramatic, showed the physical limits catching up. And yet, there's something dangerous about a man with nothing to lose. Especially one with Goldberg's instincts. For Gunther, this isn't just another title defense. This is a legacy test. Beating Goldberg, even now, carries weight. It's symbolic. It puts his name next to others who've tamed the beast, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar. It cements him not just as champion, but as heir to dominance. But the risk? Goldberg is unpredictable. He doesn't wrestle long matches, but he doesn't need to. One spear. One jackhammer. That's the formula. That's always been the formula. And if Gunther slips even once, the entire foundation of his reign collapses. That's what makes this match compelling. It's not just new school versus old school. It's a pressure test. Can Gunther keep his head against the most explosive force in wrestling history? Can Goldberg, at this stage, survive the most technically unforgiving champion in modern WWE? This isn't about who's the better talker. This isn't about promo wars or factions. This is about impact. And it's set. Gunther. Goldberg. July 12th. The Ring General vs. The Wrecking Machine. Roman Reigns wasn't booked for Saturday night's main event. He wasn't needed. The show wasn't about the bloodline, and he had no immediate challenger to address. For once, Roman was expected to sit one out. But that doesn't mean he wasn't watching. According to multiple sources, Roman Reigns was in a private luxury suite high above the arena, watching the event unfold with Paul Heyman and a tight circle of confidants. No cameras. No public appearance. Just observation. And when Goldberg's music hit, everything changed. Witnesses say Roman stood up from his seat immediately. Not in excitement. In disbelief. In anger. This wasn't part of the plan. Goldberg wasn't even on the radar. But there he was, storming down the ramp, issuing a title challenge, making headlines. Again. And not to Roman. That, insiders suggest, is what stung most. Goldberg didn't come back for revenge. He didn't circle back to finish his story with the tribal chief. He bypassed the undisputed Universal Champion entirely, and went straight for Gunther. To Roman, that wasn't just disrespect. That was provocation. Let's not forget, Roman Reigns defeated Goldberg clean in their last match at Elimination Chamber 2022. No interference. No drama. Just domination. As far as Roman was concerned, Goldberg's story ended that night. So what gives? Why would Goldberg return, and not acknowledge the man who dethroned him? That question, more than anything, is what triggered Roman's fury. Paul Heyman, always the spokesperson when emotions run high, refused to speak publicly. But a backstage source confirmed Heyman immediately contacted WWE production to schedule a response segment for Roman on the next episode of SmackDown. His message? Roman Reigns does not get disrespected. Behind closed doors, Reigns is said to be fuming. The optics alone are enough to cause friction. For 3 years, Roman Reigns has been the apex predator of WWE. Every challenger has bowed, fallen, or been cast aside. No one moves without Roman's shadow trailing behind. But on this night, it wasn't Roman who set the pace. It was Goldberg. And the WWE Universe responded. For the first time in over 1,200 days, the headlines weren't about Roman's reign. They were about someone else's return. Someone else's challenge. Someone else's title. That is not a narrative Roman tolerates. It's also not lost on him that Gunther, though currently isolated from the bloodline drama, represents a rising axis of power in WWE. His title win, his brutal in-ring dominance, his fan approval, all mirror what Roman himself established. And now, Gunther is doing it without Heyman, without family, without manipulation. Just dominance. Which raises a dangerous possibility. what if the WWE Universe starts seeing Gunther as the new dominant champion, the alternative to Roman's reign? That, insiders suggest, is where Roman's concern lies. Because while the tribal chief has operated in a near vacuum, an aura of invincibility reinforced by calculated matches and rare title defenses, Gunther has been out there every week. Winning. Defending. Building. If Gunther beats Goldberg, clean and decisively, the landscape changes. Goldberg is still a name. A headline maker. A former world champion. If Gunther destroys him, it validates Gunther as the champion. Arguably even more active and relevant than Roman. And that's a threat Roman can't ignore. There's also history to consider. Roman Reigns and Goldberg have crossed paths before. In interviews, Roman has never shied away from mocking Goldberg's part-time status or questioning his conditioning. He's dismissed him as a relic. But what if the relic becomes relevant again? That's the seed of Roman's fury. He doesn't want Goldberg to lose to Gunther. He wants to be the one to end Goldberg. Again. Because the moment Goldberg walks away from the Gunther match, win or lose, the spotlight is on him. And if Roman isn't the one standing in that spotlight too, it weakens the aura. Wrestling is about control. Control of momentum. Of perception. Of narrative. And right now, Roman doesn't have control. For once, someone else is calling the shots. And it's not the bloodline. It's not the authority. It's not even Triple H. It's Goldberg. And that alone makes Roman dangerous. There are already whispers backstage that Roman may insert himself into the Gunther-Goldberg story. Whether physically or politically. He doesn't like being left out of the main conversation. Especially not when someone he already conquered is trying to rewrite the ending. Because Roman doesn't forget. He doesn't forgive. And when he decides to react, it isn't subtle. The question now is, will Roman watch July 12th from the sidelines? Or will he intervene before then, to remind the world that Goldberg answers to him? The cameras cut to black after Goldberg's challenge. The show ended, the credits rolled, and the fans exited the arena, buzzing with disbelief. But while the WWE Universe processed the return, the real tension brewed backstage. Within 10 minutes of the closing segment, the locker room mood shifted from quiet anticipation to low-level chaos. WWE is used to surprises. But not this kind. Not this big, not this unchecked. This wasn't a planned storyline that the entire roster was in on. In fact, most of the talent found out about Goldberg's appearance the same way fans did, by watching it unfold live. That kind of reveal sends shockwaves through a locker room already loaded with egos, ambitions, and complex hierarchies. The first reaction from most talent was shock. Goldberg wasn't on any booking sheets. His name hadn't been floated during meetings. There had been no visible clues. But once the surprise wore off, it was replaced by another emotion, tension. One source described it as electric but uneasy. Another said, "You don't bring Goldberg in without shaking things up." And some of us just got back on track. Several rising stars saw the writing on the wall instantly. A returning legend doesn't just show up to say hello, especially not one who makes title demands and headlines events. That means reshuffled match cards. It means fewer top-level opportunities for the full-time roster. And for the guys grinding every week to build their momentum, that stings. One mid-card talent was overheard saying, "So you mean to tell me I've been busting my ass every week, every house show, and now we're giving away a title shot to a guy who hasn't wrestled since my last haircut?" Another called it a classic Vince McMahon play, though sources say Triple H approved Goldberg's return himself. But it wasn't just the wrestlers who were rattled. Producers, agents, and even some members of creative were caught off guard. Goldberg's involvement had been kept under such tight secrecy that only a handful of decision-makers even knew he was flying in. That kind of top-secret operation doesn't happen often. And when it does, it usually signals that something massive is about to change. And yet, amid all the friction, there were also pockets of excitement. Younger wrestlers who grew up watching Goldberg couldn't hide their admiration, even if they knew it might cost them a TV slot. "This is wild," one NXT call-up said. "We've got Gunther, maybe the most legit dude in the company, facing off with a living legend. It's like the past and future are colliding right in front of us." Veterans backstage were more measured. Some saw the opportunity. If Goldberg's return draws eyes, it raises ratings. And if ratings go up, so do bonuses, exposure, and future bookings. But there was no escaping the bigger reality: WWE's landscape had just tilted. Faction leaders like Finn Balor and Damian Priest were quiet. Seth Rollins, who had been teasing a return to the title picture, reportedly left the building immediately after the segment, visibly frustrated. Even LA Knight, riding a wave of fan support, seemed blindsided by the shift in focus. Backstage reports suggest that Gunther returned through the curtain to a standing ovation, from staff, not just fellow wrestlers. He didn't celebrate. He didn't smile. He walked straight to his locker, sat down, and stayed silent for a full 5 minutes. When asked how he felt about the challenge, he gave one sentence: "This is exactly what I expected." That was all he said. Gunther's camp, made up of Imperium members Ludwig Kaiser and Giovanni Vinci, remained stone-faced. Sources close to the group suggest they view Goldberg's return as both a test and an insult. Not personal, strategic. The implication is clear: WWE's higher-ups may not fully trust Gunther to draw as champion yet, and Goldberg is the insurance policy. That interpretation adds fuel to the fire. Because if Gunther wins, he's legitimized instantly. But if he loses, the momentum he built through years of consistency could vanish in a single spear. And while Gunther may be composed, those around him know the stakes. This isn't just a match. It's a proving ground, for Goldberg, for Gunther, and for the entire direction WWE is about to take. There's something different about Goldberg this time. Not just in how he looks, though, yes, he's leaner, meaner, and somehow more focused, but in how he moves. How he talks. How he showed up unannounced, spoke with absolute clarity, and left without fanfare. This isn't the Goldberg of 2016 who returned to pop a rating and give his son a moment in the ring. It's not the Goldberg of 2021 trying to plug one last run into a chaotic title picture. This feels final. Not in a gimmicky farewell tour kind of way. There were no tears. No promises. No tributes. Just a challenge. Direct. Cold. Surgical. And if this is his last ride, then Goldberg has chosen to write his ending in his own language: violence, dominance, and legacy. That word, legacy, carries weight in Goldberg's case. Few figures in wrestling history have sparked as much debate, admiration, and division as him. He burst onto the scene in WCW in 1997, carving a 173-0 undefeated streak that became the stuff of wrestling legend. In a time dominated by over-the-top personalities and drawn-out promos, Goldberg was different. He didn't talk. He smashed. He entered like a weapon, destroyed like a force of nature, and left before the dust settled. Fans loved him. Critics doubted him. Wrestlers respected him but feared the brevity of his matches. Still, Goldberg was real. He had intensity you couldn't fake. He made you believe. When WCW collapsed, Goldberg disappeared from the spotlight. A brief and controversial run in WWE in the early 2000s left fans wondering if they'd ever see him at his full potential again. Then came the comeback, first in 2016, then again in the years that followed. He beat Brock Lesnar in under 2 minutes. Held the Universal Championship. Headlined WrestleMania. Lost to Roman Reigns. Lost to Drew McIntyre. But through it all, he remained relevant. Even when his matches ran short, even when his style was outdated by modern standards, Goldberg brought something no one else could: urgency. When Goldberg enters a storyline, time compresses. Stakes escalate. Everyone pays attention. But it's not just nostalgia. It's the aura. Few men in pro wrestling can walk into a ring, say 6 words, and sell out an arena. Goldberg is one of them. Still, the returns have become rarer. The match is shorter. The risks higher. By all accounts, Goldberg is in phenomenal shape. He trains daily. He maintains discipline. But age is undefeated, and at 57, every bump matters more. Every return carries weight, not just with fans, but with his own body. That's why this match with Gunther feels different. This isn't about one last title. It's about the right opponent. Gunther is everything Goldberg never was. A student of the sport. A ring tactician. A methodical, remorseless strategist. No theatrics. No shortcuts. Just technique, cruelty, and control. And that's the perfect storm. Because if Goldberg wanted a soft landing, he could have challenged someone safe. A name that wouldn't hit back quite as hard. A feud based on nostalgia, comfort, fan service. But instead, he's chosen the most brutal man on the roster. A man who makes no apologies and no concessions. That tells you everything. Goldberg's legacy isn't built on what fans feel. It's built on what they remember. They remember him steamrolling The Rock. Jackhammering Kevin Nash. Spearing Lesnar. Destroying Dolph Ziggler in under 90 seconds. But they also remember the misses. The match against The Undertaker in Saudi Arabia. The brief feud with Lashley that fizzled. The repetitive criticism of he can't go more than 5 minutes. Goldberg hears it all. He knows his career is controversial. Divisive. And now, in this match, he has a chance to close the book on his own terms. Because here's the thing, if Goldberg beats Gunther, clean and convincingly, it forces a rewrite of every criticism thrown his way. It makes him undeniable. If he loses? It's a passing of the torch in the most definitive way possible. Either way, it matters. Goldberg's legacy isn't written yet. But this chapter, on July 12th, will define its final tone. Triumph. Or transition. Gunther didn't take a shortcut. He didn't debut with a viral moment. He didn't coast on charisma. He didn't ride the wave of an indie buzz or carry the hype of a social media movement. Gunther built his name with grit, cold precision, and the kind of old-school punishment that made fans sit up straight. Before WWE, he was Walter, a towering Austrian bruiser who made his name by hurting people in the ring. Not recklessly. Not sloppily. But deliberately, strategically, and without remorse. And he didn't care about popularity. That's what made him dangerous. Gunther doesn't play to the crowd. He doesn't pander. He's not a heel in the classic sense, nor a babyface by any stretch. He's something rarer, a pure competitor, obsessed with excellence. With control. With mastery. His run in NXT UK was legendary. He dominated that brand, holding the NXT UK Championship for 870 days, a modern record. Not because the company didn't have other options. But because no one could believably take the belt from him. He didn't just win matches. He broke spirits. His style? Brutal. European strong style meets classical grappling with terrifying efficiency. Chops that echo through arenas. Suplexes that shake foundations. A presence that made even the most cynical fans watch. When he moved to NXT proper in the US, there were doubts. Could Walter translate to WWE's bigger ecosystem? Could a quiet, methodical, unapologetically stiff wrestler get over in an era driven by theatrics and talkers? The answer came quickly. Gunther rebranded, not just in name, but in polish. Walter became Gunther. The name change sparked backlash. But the man remained the same. If anything, he got sharper. Leaner. More menacing. He was called up to the main roster quietly. No fireworks. No overhyped vignette. Just Gunther, showing up on SmackDown and beginning his reign of pain. Within months, he claimed the Intercontinental Championship. A title that had languished in irrelevance for years. Gunther changed that overnight. He restored meaning to that belt the way legends used to, by defending it. Regularly. Against serious opponents. Without nonsense. He didn't just retain, he dominated. His matches with Sheamus, Ricochet, Drew McIntyre, and others were masterclasses. Every time Gunther walked to the ring, fans knew they were getting a war. No wasted motion. No easy outs. He made the Intercontinental title matter again. When his reign surpassed 600 days, fans weren't just impressed, they were invested. Not in his story, but in his presence. The way he carried himself. The way he wrestled like a machine with a singular objective, to win and impose order. He wasn't trying to be Roman. He wasn't trying to be Cena. He was carving out something different. A new kind of dominance. Then came the World Heavyweight Championship. After months of speculation, after the Bloodline saga pulled the undisputed titles into a separate orbit, WWE introduced a second top-tier championship for Raw. The World Heavyweight title, a modern reincarnation of the big gold belt lineage, was created. Gunther didn't beg for it. He didn't politic. He simply earned it. He qualified for the match. He won it decisively. And when the referee handed him the belt, Gunther didn't celebrate. He didn't drop to his knees in tears. He raised it with one arm and stared into the hard camera with a look that said, "This is only the beginning." That's Gunther. Not chasing glory. Demanding it. He isn't flashy. He doesn't do flips or cut flashy promos. But he wins. And people notice. More importantly, the locker room notices. Because Gunther's rise hasn't been theatrical. It's been surgical. A slow, inevitable grind to the top. No gimmicks. No family drama. No romantic storylines. Just wrestling. And that's what makes Goldberg's challenge so symbolic. This is the fight between eras. Goldberg, the explosive spear and jackhammer showstopper from wrestling's boom years. And Gunther, the cold, relentless strategist forged in the fire of NXT and shaped by global discipline. If Gunther wins, clean, on July 12th, it won't just be another title defense. It will be the final stamp on one of the most disciplined rises in WWE history. A quiet, violent revolution, crowned in full view. For over 3 years, Roman Reigns has stood at the summit of WWE. Unchallenged. Untouchable. Universal Champion. Then undisputed champion. Then something more, an institution. Roman doesn't chase the title anymore, the title chases him. Every story in WWE eventually circles back to him. Every rising star, every marquee event, every big return is either orbiting around Roman or crashing directly into his legacy. That's why Goldberg's challenge to Gunther hits differently. Not because Roman fears Goldberg, he already beat him. Not because Roman fears Gunther, there's no history between them yet. But because, for the first time in years, a seismic event in WWE happened without Roman being involved, and it worked. It worked so well that Roman's reaction wasn't curiosity. It was anger. That's the threat. Roman's power has never just come from titles. It comes from relevance. From dominance. From control of the WWE narrative. Whether fans love him or hate him, they talk about him. He commands the screen, the mic, the main event. But on July 12th, he's not in the ring. He's not on the marquee. He's not in the conversation. That kind of silence can be dangerous. WWE is clearly building Gunther as a new apex predator. Not a loud one, not a show stealer. But a slow-burning force that's now entered the spotlight. The title he holds may not be unified, but it's visible. And he's defending it, week after week, in battles that rival and sometimes eclipse the spectacle of Roman's few title defenses. Gunther isn't just winning, he's making dominance look easy. And that's where things get political. Roman Reigns has built his reign on scarcity. Big fights. Rare appearances. Epic consequences. It's worked. He stayed healthy, kept his character sharp, and preserved his mystique. But Gunther is doing the opposite. He's present. He's weekly. He's grinding. And fans are noticing. Some are asking, if Gunther continues this run, why shouldn't he be considered the face of WWE? The optics are shifting. Quietly, but powerfully. Roman Reigns can't afford to ignore that. That's why Goldberg's involvement complicates things. If Goldberg beats Gunther, Roman's legacy is preserved by proxy. The newer, hungrier champion gets dethroned by a legend Roman already conquered. It puts the spotlight back on Roman, who becomes the measuring stick again. But if Gunther crushes Goldberg? Clean? With no controversy? That's a crack in the mirror Roman spent 3 years polishing. It introduces a new narrative, that Gunther's dominance isn't just real, it's now. It says that a new kind of champion is rising. One without a family faction. One without Heyman. One without manipulation or theatrics. Just cold, relentless victories. That comparison is dangerous. Because Roman has built his kingdom on isolation. There's only one top dog. One table. One head of the table. Gunther doesn't need that branding. He just wins. So what does Roman do? He could ignore it. Let Gunther have his moment. Let the Goldberg match play out and pretend it doesn't affect him. But Roman Reigns doesn't ignore threats. He crushes them. Which raises a serious possibility. Roman Reigns versus Gunther may be inevitable. Not just for a title. But for power. Two champions. Two styles. Two visions for what dominance looks like in this era of WWE. Roman, with his cinematic slow-burn storylines, rooted in psychology and loyalty. Gunther, with his machine-like destruction, built on discipline and consistency. The fans will ask for it. The locker room will feel it. And Roman? He'll have to decide, does he confront the storm while he still controls the weather? Or wait until the storm comes to him? The moment Goldberg stepped into the ring with Gunther, the WWE Universe didn't just react, they detonated. Within minutes, social media exploded with hot takes, bold predictions, and emotional meltdowns. Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, YouTube comment sections, everywhere you looked, the conversation had one central theme: what does this mean? The reactions weren't uniform. They never are. But they were loud, fast, and passionate. Some fans were euphoric. Goldberg, back in WWE, not just talking about legacy or nostalgia, but actually gunning for the top title? That kind of move hits the fanbase like lightning. Longtime viewers who grew up in the late 90s and early 2000s felt the adrenaline instantly. It was the kind of "I didn't know I missed this until it happened" moment. Goldberg versus Gunther? Bro, that's an all-timer if they book it right, one fan tweeted, racking up 40K likes. WWE just turned Saturday night's main event into the summer card. No cap, another wrote. Younger fans and purists, however, were more skeptical. They've watched Gunther build his credibility week by week. He's the workers' champion, the guy who puts on 5-star matches without theatrics or shortcuts. To them, Goldberg represents the opposite: short matches, big names, legacy over merit. Don't let this man squash Gunther. We're not going backward, one Reddit post warned, sparking over 1,000 comments in a heated thread. Others took a more strategic view. Goldberg's here to pass the torch. Has to be. This is the best way to give Gunther that big-time legend scalp before he steps into Roman's orbit, one YouTube analyst said during a livestream breakdown that pulled in over 50K views in the first 24 hours. That's the underlying current of all these reactions, the future. Everyone agrees that Gunther is being built into something massive. Whether you love or hate Goldberg's return, the conversation always circles back to what happens next. Which is exactly the kind of buzz WWE wants. Theories started flooding in within the hour. One of the most popular? That Goldberg is a red herring. According to this camp, Goldberg's return isn't just about Gunther, it's bait. A distraction to pull attention away from Roman Reigns before SummerSlam. This theory posits that Roman may appear after the Gunther-Goldberg match, attacking the winner and setting up a champion versus champion match to consolidate power heading into the fall. Another theory suggests this is all leading to a triple threat at SummerSlam, Roman versus Gunther versus Goldberg. The logic here is simple: 3 dominant forces colliding in one main event would generate massive viewership. It also allows WWE to pivot in any direction depending on crowd reactions and backstage dynamics. Then there's the dark horse theory: Goldberg wins the title, only to drop it to someone younger, possibly Cody Rhodes or even a returning Randy Orton, at a major event. That scenario would make Goldberg a transitional champion, used to shake things up and generate short-term heat. But the most consistent through line across all fan discussion? Respect for Gunther. Even critics of Goldberg's return concede that this match elevates Gunther. It places him on a stage normally reserved for WWE's absolute top names. It's a declaration from creative that Gunther isn't just a mid-card king anymore, he's a headline act. This elevation isn't lost on international fans either. Gunther's European roots have made him a continental hero, especially in Germany, Austria, and the UK. Forums from Berlin to Birmingham lit up with national pride the moment he stared Goldberg down. One post on a German fan site translated to, "This is our moment." From WXW to NXT UK to a showdown with Goldberg. Gunther is the real deal. There's also the chatter about match logistics. Fans are speculating on how the match will be booked. Will it be a fast, brutal fight like Goldberg's past encounters? Or will WWE allow Gunther to stretch Goldberg, exposing weaknesses and solidifying himself as the modern ring general? One viral tweet read, "If Gunther makes Goldberg tap out? I'm losing my mind." That would be the coldest win of 2025. WWE thrives on this kind of conversation. When fans care enough to debate, the story is working. But underneath all the excitement, one truth is emerging: this match is a line in the sand. Not just for titles. Not just for legacy. But for the audience itself. Are we still in the era where nostalgia pops rule the game? Or is this the true arrival of the next dominant chapter in WWE?